Hi, I'm Patrick. Field name is Bubbles. And I've been playing for about 25 years. Some of you have never played and may be curious enough to watch this. So hopefully by the time this is over, you'll be comfortable enough to come out and we'll meet you on the field someday.
Please stand by. I have a small bridge covered. Yes, sir. Copy. Coming in. Many more bodies to cover the field players. Break. Back fishing with blood. Deep near the flanks. I'm going to blow the church. Please stand by for a transmission from the Fringe.
Hey, welcome back. Glad you're still here. Thank you. Let me get something out of the way first. And the most common question that I have ever been asked about people who are curious about the sport of paintball is, does it hurt? Well, the short answer is, yeah, it can. It doesn't hurt a lot, but it can be surprising, especially if you've never played before. Now, I've been playing long enough that when I get hit, it's more of a, okay, did it break? Yeah, kind of a thing. However, it also matters on where you get hit. Back of the thighs, the butt, the neck, and the head are my least favorite places to get hit because I don't care who you are, you're going to feel it. Otherwise, it's more of a, okay, well, all right, let's move on. So when you first start playing, you're going to be surprised by it. I'll be perfectly frank with you. Other than that, paintball is a big sport. Whether you play in the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, Glasgow, Scotland, Cape Town, South Africa, Adelaide, Australia, chances are very good there's a field near you. So hit up that search engine and give it a shot. A marker is a handheld device using compressed gas in a reservoir to propel a small, frankly 68 caliber gelatin-filled shell out of a barrel to hit somebody. That fill is non-toxic. In fact, it's used commonly in food additives. You could actually eat it if you so much wanted to, but it doesn't taste particularly good. And the shell is made out of gelatin, the same stuff that Tylenol capsules are made out of. Why is it called a marker and not a gun? Well, in order to explain that, let me tell you a little history about paintball. In the early 1960s, Charles Nelson of the Nelson Paint Company had already invented a squirt gun that shot paint on trees for the U.S. Forestry Commission. And the commission approached him to see if he could come up with a device that could mark them from a distance, over gullies or rivers or other means that kept trees difficult to reach. And so Charles began injecting horse pills with paint and created a CO2-powered marker that could actually accomplish this feat. And so therefore, he had invented the paintball marker. Later on, in 1982, in Sutton, New Hampshire, was the first official paintball game. In fact, there is one of those state placards, historical state placards, at that spot. So, the rest is history. Markers belong to classes. There are several classes of marker, and let me show you a number of them. The first, this is a stock class marker. It has a 10-round magazine, single shot trigger, and is powered by a single 12-gram CO2 cartridge. The next move up from that is a pump. This is why they call it a pump. The differences between it and a stock are larger capacity and larger capacity air. And a special feature of pumps, if you hold the trigger back, it will shoot a paintball every time you release it. Farther up the ladder from that is your traditional semi-automatic marker, which shoots a paintball every time you pull the trigger and is powered entirely by air. Further up the scale is you have what is known as an electro-pneumatic, or as in paintball parlance, a space gun. Just like the semi-automatic, except this one has a computer in it. So it's fire by wire. Every time you pull the trigger, a paintball comes out. However, since it's computer controlled, there's a lot more options available to you. For example, you can do something called ramping, which begins to take over from you and can shoot a number of paintballs on your behalf. It also means that it is capable of a much higher trigger rate, up to 22 paintballs per second. So this is frankly my favorite. And the next one up is mag-fed. Like a traditional firearm, this one's magazine fed. This one has a space for 10 rounds, much like the stock class. However, got a little bit of an attitude today. It feeds through a magazine from the underside. There are a number of paintball markers that have this, but this pistol is just one example of it. Sometimes there are game types that call for a particular kind of class, like stock only or pump only. So that means that you are only competing against other players within this same type of class. There are other games like full-on scenarios and open games that allow you to bring whatever you want out on the field, within reason, of course. Anything legal. Fully autos are not legal, like I mentioned earlier. So that can determine the kind of play you're going to see that day. For example, stock class, a lot of sneaking around, very quiet. You're not carrying a lot of spare ammunition on you. And if you're using an electro-pneumatic, there's going to be a lot of noise, a lot of paint flying, a lot of yelling and shouting and running. It's a lot of fun. Depends on what kind of play you want to see in that kind of game. There are also a number of types of games. For example, woods ball, which is just like it sounds. You play that in the woods, which is actually how the sport was born. There's speedball, which is on a very symmetrical field, like football field, with inflatable bunkers. And there's also scenario type games, which have missions and points that you make, or regular games, which are 10-15 minutes at a time, capture the flag style scenarios. Very diverse types of gameplay. You also have the choice of how you want to play, what the style of player it is. You can be a standard player out there going out and shooting. You can be a runner. A runner's type that doesn't have a paintball marker. He's out there to gather items and get points. Usually you see those during a scenario game. You also have long ballers, which are fellows that sit in the back of the field and just try to loft the paintballs over great distances to keep the other team down. You could also be crazy, and I've been known to do that every now and then, which is just running straight into the other line and trying to take out as many of them as you can, while also perhaps getting them to run a little bit or get bunkered a little bit so your team can come in behind you. There's all kinds of strategies that you can do in this sport. Paintball, like football and hockey, wouldn't be a sport if you didn't have rules. Rule number 1 in paintball is the mask. Anytime you're inside the field, outside the safety zone, you have to have your mask. And you can't break that seal no matter what you do. Rule number 2, paint speed. Yes, paintballs are governed at a certain speed out of the velocity, out of the barrel of the paintball marker. It's measured at about this distance by a device called a chronograph, which is literally a radar gun for paintballs. Your typical field will have 280 feet per second maximum speed. They won't even let you on, they being the refs, won't even let you on the field if you're shooting faster than that. That is measured usually every time you get onto the field, and randomly throughout the day. The referees will have handheld chronographs and be checking you during the day. Why do they do that? Well, temperature and humidity and air pressure can affect the velocity of the paintballs. Going over that speed is something called shooting hot, and that is a big no-no in the ethics of paintball. Like any sport, you also have some ethics. One of the ethics are no physical contact out on the field. You're not allowed to, touch another player with your paintball marker. There are limits to that. For example, if you and a teammate are trying to be sneaky, you can put your hand on the shoulders. That's perfectly reasonable, but you're not allowed to tag another person with your paintball marker unless the rules of that particular game allow you to do barrel tagging like that. Another ethics rule is surrender. If you are within, say, 15 feet of another player, it is good etiquette to ask them to surrender, because at that distance, like my earlier question that I'm asked, does it hurt? It will hurt no matter where you are shot from that distance. So if you're crazy like me, you can close the distance and you can expect to be shot from that distance, but if you manage to get up on somebody and within 15 feet, just ask them to surrender. They will tend to say yes and then thank you. Also, good etiquette is if you get shot out from a great distance, or if you're in a heated battle with somebody and they eventually shoot you out, just say good shot, player. It's just good sportsmanship to do so.
It really depends on where you get shot. You know, the reality is that for the split second that you realize that you actually got hit by a paintball, to the point where you realize that you can get hit by more, the pain goes away pretty quickly. You have to roll with that and move on from it. Is there some pain afterwards? Sure, there's some pain afterwards. But there's nothing that matches the rush of actually being on the delivering end of some of that pain sometimes.
When you use the word hurt, there's a lot of strong and negative connotation with the word hurt. I think when you're hit and when you're in the middle of a battle and your adrenaline's going, you feel I'll say like a notification. You know you get hit.
Ding, you've got mail.
Ding, you got mail. Ding, you got hit. Lasts for about 9-10 seconds. Yeah. You're all done. It's all over, and that's the worst of it.
Admittedly, it does hurt, but you're also playing, and there's a lot of adrenaline in you. Mm-hmm. So it's not that big of a deal when it does hurt. It's more of a wake up, hello, so you missed something
right.
type thing. So
maybe you forgot to look behind you.
Yes, or your teammate shot you, which has happened.
Don't be so afraid for their safety. The equipment is set up in a way now that you can play as hard as you want, you can play as smart as you want, and you'll be safe. That's what the masks are for. That's what padding is for. You can wear knee pads and elbow pads. You have to believe that the person who's playing the game can make the best decision as to how much risk they want to be part of. You staying at home and being nervous for how they're going to come back doesn't change the experience that they're having. So just let them go. It'll be okay.
It depends on the situation. If I'm taking out my nephew, I'm telling them that this is a bonding experience for me and my nephew. That everything's going to be okay. The refs, wherever we go, are always fantastic. Everything's monitored. There's really no danger involved. And that it's just going to go out to be a bonding experience and have a good time. That's pretty much it.
I take all of my stuff off, including my boots, my gloves, any of my gear. I put it right in a garbage bag.
Is to just go out and play. Learn how a paintball shoots.
But if you're trying to get better at it, just look at the seasoned players and see what they do.
So I hope that was a good education for you, and I hope that was enough information to put away any concerns or fears that you have around the sport of paintball. If you do decide to play, please, if you see this logo, come and see us out on the field. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and I hope to see you out on the field someday soon.
You have to imagine that anybody who's actually playing the game. Sorry, what did you get bit by?
I don't know, but that hurt.
I didn't see anything.
Can I do this one in an English accent? The Queen's English,
I
actually.
don't think there's anything wrong with doing anything like that.
Like Shark Week?
All right, action whenever you're ready.
Boy, if I only remembered what the hell
There's
we
a
were calling
shark
this.
in the water.